Hey guys, welcome back to the homestead. Today I'm inside because most of the garden stuff has been taken care of. I do still have quite a few tasks in the garden though, and I still didn't move my greenhouse yet because we had a lot of lawn care and just general landscaping things that we had to get done before the cold weather hits here. So today I thought I would take you guys along. We're gonna harvest some herbs, and then I'm gonna show you a couple ways that I like to preserve my herbs rather simply, and ways that doesn't take too much time so I can use them throughout the year. So let's go harvest some herbs and we'll start preserving them. Just cut off some of this oregano here. Just going down a couple of inches. I'm just gonna cut it right back. Oregano bounces right back, so don't worry about cutting off too much. Oregano is one of those herbs that it does pretty well in the cold weather. It's pretty cold hardy, and it'll come back every year so long as you don't disturb the roots. Okay. And oregano, if you're gonna make a pizza, you really have to add some oregano into your pizza sauce. It just makes it taste authentic. Oregano is also extremely healthy and good for the immune system, so you can dry it out and make some oregano tea or add it to some olive oil and make some extracted olive oil with oregano oil in it. It's really good for whenever you have a cold or flu or any sort of virus like that. You can use the oregano. Here is my catnip. Absolutely love this catnip. It is one small plant in a tiny container, and this thing it's huge. Let's see if I can give you a full shot of it. It's absolutely huge. The butterflies and the pollinators love this thing. Now, catnip is an herb that is edible, so you can actually harvest this and dry it out and make tea out of it. So if you have a dehydrator, you can dehydrate all of these herbs here, or you can just leave them on a tray at room temperature. Make sure it's a nice airy tray and has like airflow, and just leave them there until they dry. And then you can put them in those little tea ball infusers and make a nice tea that will help soothe you. It's great for if you're having insomnia and you can't sleep. Catnip is great for that. We have peppermint here that I can harvest. I'm also going to harvest a little bit of the peppermint. Peppermint is wonderful for headaches and any sort of digestion issues. Peppermint is good for that. I really love to have a cup of peppermint tea, or like at the beginning of a migraine or something like that. I like to have the peppermint tea, as well as for kids. Peppermint tea is beautiful and awesome because there's no caffeine in it and it's pure and natural. So I'm gonna harvest some of that as well. Look right here, you can see the peppermint's turning purple. Peppermint turns purple when it's lacking phosphorus. So I'm going to fertilize with something that's high in phosphorus to get this back up in shape for next year. So this is a lot easier to use your scissors or your pruning shears. And I'm just going to hold a bunch of it and just cut it back like that. Okay, well, I think we have enough herbs now. Let's go inside and I'll show you how I preserve these very simply. So I've got all of my herbs here, a bunch of the peppermint, and an entire bowl of the oregano. So I'm gonna show you first how I do fresh preservation. It's actually quite easy, but first I'm gonna wash all of these herbs. You really have to wash them. There's gonna be some dust, dirt, debris, maybe even some bugs that you want to get off. And if you see any other little bits of grass blades or anything like that, take them out of there. I did get just a little bit more of my sage, but I have a bunch of dried sage in here that I stuffed into here once it was dried. I also have a bunch of dried basil in here. And I'm going to show you how I preserve the dry ones. They're already dry, so I can really just use them however I want. But I want to show you guys how I dry them without using my dehydrator. Now, I do have a dehydrator, so if I want to use them, I certainly can. But I'm just not going to pull it out and use it for this because I can dry them at room temperature quite simply. Let me show you how I do that. All right, so I have one of these like cookie trays here. It's just like a little cooling rack. And once these herbs are washed, all I'm gonna do is basically put them on here, and then I'm gonna put a paper towel over top. And I'm just gonna leave that at room temperature in a nice warm spot. Usually I put it on top of my fridge up here, where it's out of the way, and just with a paper towel over top it, just like this. And I just leave that until it's dry and crispy. Once it's nice and crispy and you can pretty much crumble it with your hands, you know that it's dry and it's ready to go. Once they're completely dry, you can pretty much do whatever you want. You can leave them, they'll last for a long time. Nothing's gonna happen to the herbs once they're dry because all the moisture is out of them. So you can just basically grind it up and toss it into your food as you need once they're dry. You can also toss them into your dehydrator to dry them off, or you can just bundle up your herbs like this, and you can just make sure you don't do it too many herbs. So I would probably do like half of this, tie it off with a string like this, and then you just kind of hang them up somewhere in the ceiling or somewhere by a window, wherever, until they're dry. Okay, so I've rinsed off all of my oregano here, so I'm just going to pour them on here, and I'm gonna use my paper towel to blot them dry really well. Okay, that's dry enough. All right, so oregano's ready. Okay, so peppermint has been rinsed. Just gonna pour it on, put it on the paper towel here. Pick out any little bits of grass or anything like that that might be in here. Just like this little stuff. And I'm gonna simply hang them like this by holding each piece. I'm going to get them dry by hanging them like I just showed you. So I'm just gonna hold the bottom of the stems like this. And I'm gonna make a little bundle, tie it off, and then I'm gonna hang it up until it dries. These little bits here, I'll just make some fresh peppermint tea with it. Now, because this is these are herbs, you can definitely eat them fresh, so don't think that you have to you know, dry everything out. You can make fresh peppermint tea with this. I make fresh peppermint tea all the time. My son actually likes the fresh peppermint tea more than like the store-bought peppermint tea. It just has a different depth of flavor, and we just really like it here. So I'm gonna get something to tie this off, and I'm just gonna hang this in the ceiling and let it dry for the next few days until it's completely dry. And then I can just literally crunch this up with my hands, or just leave it, use it however I want, like this. Okay, so what I have here is a zip tie, and I'm just gonna zip tie this together. I can just easily snip the zip tie off once it's dry, and we'll be good to go. Just like that. See, so easy, right? Then you just kind of hang this up wherever you want. Look at that. Okay, let's move on to preserving the oregano now. Let's get rid of this. Let's deal with some of the dried herbs that I already dried a few weeks ago. All I'm going to do is basically make a mixed herb seasoning. I really like to use all of the herbs that I like growing in my garden in one. Sometimes I'll put them into individual little jars and just put the lids on them and then use them individually. But this time I want to make an herb mix because I made a mix with the herb last time and I actually really like it. So this is what I made, and you can see all of the fresh herbs are ground in there. I've been using it for quite some time. I really like it mixed. So that's what I'm gonna do. So simply, very easy. I'm gonna get my blender and I'm gonna blend this up into one powder, and then we'll put it in the jar. All right, so I have my blender here and I have my herbs. This is all basil. And I dried this basil out and I stuffed it in here a while ago. There's quite a bit of basil in here. It's just stuffed in. And I also have some of my sage here. So I'm just gonna get all that dried sage in there. And then I have some oregano that I dried out just a couple days ago. I'm gonna add the oregano to that as well. I also have some parsley. So I'm gonna put the parsley in. I have dried parsley here that once I dry the herbs out, I usually try to put them in a bag like this, making sure they're completely dry before you package or storage them, because if you do, these herbs will rot and they'll go moldy on you. And you don't want moldy herbs. So the #1 tip is to make sure that these herbs are completely dry before you put them in jars or in a bag or anything like that. I'm just gonna blend this up now. So you can use whatever it is you have. A food processor works really well here as well, but I really like using my blender. I'll show you what it looks like. Do you see all that? Nice, beautiful. Oh, the smell. Oh my goodness. Woo, intoxicating. Like as soon as you grind this, you'll start to smell it. Now there will be some little bits of like stems, especially if you didn't take all the stems off of it before putting it in. Now you can take all the stems off and only put in the leaves, but I don't mind having a few stems in there. And I just kind of pour it into my jars, and you just fill up the jars. I usually fill up those canning jars with it when I make a big batch, but you can see that this herb has been dry and it's well preserved, and I can shake this into any recipe now and have a delicious 3 to 4 herb mixture. So in here we have sage, basil, oregano, parsley. Let's preserve fresh herbs now. Whatever I have left of the sage, I'm gonna put it in with the oregano because I don't have too much sage left in the garden. So we're just gonna put that together. Again, I'm gonna use my blender. I'm gonna pop all these bad boys in there. And what I'm gonna do now is add some olive oil. So I have about, let's see, I'm pressing it really hard. And my blender here has a measurement on it, close to 200, maybe 150 milliliters. So it's obviously a liquid measurement, but I stuffed it in there and I got it as about 6 ounces in there. So I'm gonna add about 1 ounce or so of your best olive oil. You want this to be really good olive oil. So here I have my organic extra virgin olive oil, and I'm just gonna add some to the herbs like this. I'm just gonna get a little more olive oil in there. Add enough olive oil so that it starts to blend. Now it's pretty much liquefied. Okay guys, so this is the ground herbs with that olive oil. It'll really activate that herb smell once you start cooking with it. You can infuse this into like butter. Like you can take this and just mix it into some butter. You can actually take the fresh herbs, chop them up, and just mix it into your butter, and that's a great way to preserve it as well. I usually do that with dill. So I'll take all of the fresh dill, chop them up, and then I'll just take a block of butter and just mix it with the block of salted butter. And that way I can toss it on my potatoes or any delicious recipe. All you have to do now is basically pop this into either a Ziploc bag, or so you can actually pour this into the ice tray and then just freeze them. And whenever you're ready for to cook with them, you just pop it out, and like you would do with ice, and just put it in your food, put it in your pan to saute, pop it into your soup stock, whatever it is you want. What I'm gonna do is just put it in a Ziploc bag. I have these small sandwich Ziploc bags here, and I like to use these for preserving smaller amounts of food. So I'm just gonna pour it in here. And I'm gonna make sure to get a label on here so I know what herbs I have in here. So don't forget to label it. go. All right. Okay, so just do it like this, and then I'm just gonna flatten it a little bit, and this is ready to go into the freezer. Very simply, and this way you can preserve all of your herbs fresh without losing any of that fresh flavor. If you want it on fresh potatoes, if you want to saute, if you want to put some on your steaks, on your chicken, on your beef, on the pork, whatever it is, you can just scoop some out and put it in here. So it's a really versatile way of using it. Okay guys, well here's 3 simple ways to preserve your herbs. 1 in olive oil, 1 dried and ready to be sprinkled, and some that you can dry or use fresh and use in teas or any other way that you find useful. Well guys, thank you for joining me for this episode and spending some time with me inside today. I really hope you enjoyed spending time with me and preserving herbs. Make sure you guys like, comment, and share the video. It really helps me out so much. Thank you for joining me. Stay peaceful.